There is a change in the schedule. Today's film will be Wedding in Galilee, winner of the 1987 Critics' Prize at the Cannes Film Festival.
Shalom, good evening. In 1995, City University Television hosted for the first time ever an Israeli film festival. At that time, the perspective was to give the young Israeli filmmakers, sometimes the avant-garde filmmakers, a showcase. Encouraged by the public reaction, City University decided to hold a second film festival. However, this time we are going to see a retrospective which takes us back about 30 years. Since the Israeli films, cinema, are a reflection of the Israeli society, they are a mirror of our preoccupations, it is natural that what you will see in the 60s are films about the early pioneers and their struggle. Then in the middle of the 60s, we see much more, both in film but also in theater and other forms of art, satire, comedy, sometimes biting, certainly social satire. The prototype is, and perhaps the most acclaimed film, Salah Shabati, which had very good audiences here in the United States and certainly had international awards. And then as we move into the 70s, for the first time, it is not so much the collective and the society. This time it is also the individual which comes center stage. We see delicate, refined films such as those of Michal Bat Adam, which puts human relationships in the center of her preoccupation. As we move into the 80s, for the first time we see two other preoccupations. First and foremost, the individual facing the military service. It is the film of a young group of people having to go to the army. It is called Late Summer Blues. And then obviously another theme which remains a central preoccupation in our lives, Arab-Israeli relations as reflected into and by the Arab-Israeli conflict. I think that by seeing this whole series, you will actually get to know a little bit closer, at a closer range, the Israeli society. After all, our filmmaking is not Hollywood. We have not created a dream world. Quite on the contrary, our films very, very faithfully reflect many of the trends in the Israeli society, as is, by the way, the rest of the art in Israel. I would like to thank City University for its initiative, for the confidence it has shown to the Israeli filmmakers, both young and old, and to wish you all to enjoy this whole series. Thank you.
The following presentation is made possible in part by the support of Telrad, Excellence in Telecommunications.
The following presentation of City Cinematheque is made possible in part by Mariv, Israel's most interesting newspaper, available every Friday in its international edition. Welcome to City Cinematheque, where the art and pleasure of the movies are the subject of serious discussion. I'm your host, Jerry Carlson, and I teach film studies at the City College of the City University of New York. Today, it's our pleasure to close our second Israeli Film Festival with an award-winning film from 1987, Wedding in Galilee, directed by Michel Clefi. This film took the Critics' Award at Cannes in that year and has had a successful run in many countries and is highly regarded for any number of reasons. One of its most unusual features is that our director, who is also the author, is a Palestinian Israeli from a Christian family. So what we're seeing in this film is a multicultural perspective from a multicultural society. It's a rich film that I think many of you will see in comparison to other films such as Jean Renoir's The Rules of the Game, or perhaps even Robert Altman's Nashville. That is, it has many characters, a rich tapestry of them, and many points of view represented. After today's screening, there'll be a lot to talk about, and it's a pleasure to welcome back to City Cinematheque Professor Yerak Gover from Queens College of the City University of New York, an expert on the Israeli cinema. Now, relish this opportunity to see the rich, the complex, the engaging Wedding in Galilee. Welcome back to City Cinematheque. I think you've had a very unusual cinematic experience for almost the last 2 hours, and we have 30 minutes in which to talk about a number of the aspects of this enormously rich and important film. Before we move on to the film itself, let me introduce today's guest. It's a pleasure to have back on City University Television our friend, Professor Yerak Gover. Yerak teaches in the Department of Classical and Mid-Eastern Languages and Cultures at Queens College of the City University of New York. He worked as a screenwriter in Israel for any number of years and is also the author of a key study of modern Hebrew fiction. Its title is Zionism, The Limits of Moral Discourse in Israeli Hebrew Fiction. Yerak, this is the last film in our series. We've had 5 weeks, which are an historical survey of Israeli cinema, of really its variety and diversity, its responses to different historical moments in the development of the culture, its response to different ideological or political moments as well. Why don't you, let me ask this of you. Should we be ending the series with this film? I mean, what is, from your point of view, what is the significance of ending a series like this with a film of this nature?
I actually wanted to compliment you, Jerry, for ending this series with a Wedding in Galilee.
Well, you're very kind.
I'll tell you why. We have seen a point of view in a contested on a contested issue, actually, that is not resolved yet.
Right.
And the contest is political, territorial, cultural, and many other aspects. We had an opportunity in this series to see the Zionist Israeli point of view. By the first movie,
They were 10 by Baruch Dinar,
yeah,
whose author and the director of the film, Baruch Dinar, was here to explain his point of view.
Right. And then by last week's movie Khamsin, which is again on the same issue, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Here we have a unique opportunity, I think, to see a movie that represents a Palestinian point of view. In other words, there we had a narrator, an Israeli narrator, where the Palestinian was narrated.
Right.
Here we have a Palestinian narrator where the Israeli is narrated. So that's very, very important. Also, there is this.
Let me stop you for just a second, because I think before we go further, I'd like to raise one question that you're already talking about, but I want to get to it specifically, and that is, in what way do we rightly say that this is an Israeli film, and not just say that this is a Mideastern film?
That's a very good question, I must say. Of course, this is a Palestinian movie, a genuine Palestinian movie. There is no question about it. In terms of production and I think the means, any other means that were necessary to produce the movie are all Palestinians, as far as I know. Also, it's interesting to note here that the role of the military governor in the movie is a Palestinian actor. Makram Houri, his name is. So we have here again a representation which is Israeli only in the sense that, first of all, the director is an Israeli Palestinian.
Yes.
In other words, he was born in Israel, I think.
In Nazareth, yes.
In Nazareth. Not I say I think because I'm not sure of how old he is.
Oh, yes.
You see, that's why I said I think, because
But he certainly grew up in Israel.
For him, it is Palestine. He was born in Palestine. If you ask the director, if you ask Michel Khleifi where he was born, he would tell you he was born in Nazareth in Palestine. Okay, and but it is an Israeli movie in the sense that he is Israeli, a citizen of Israel. He tells a story that involves Israel, and so I think, well, I think there is it is justified, I could say, to call it an Israeli film, although the story is genuinely Palestinian.
Okay. 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 Well, let's talk a little bit about the time and the setting of this film, because the issue of whether a film is Palestinian or Israeli, Mideastern or regional, this is not, you might say in some places in the world this would just be semantics, just playing with words. But in a contested territory, words have meanings that are frequently as powerful and as tragic in their consequences as deeds. So where is this, to clarify for our viewers, where is this taking place in some way, and when is it taking place? Because again, each of these contests or these issues have a history, and if you don't place them in the right context, then we are liable to misinterpret them.
Absolutely. This is a Palestinian story that takes place in the present. The present, however, is 1987. Now, and the time of the story, the narrative, is indicated by the portrait of the Israeli president in the
Office of the Military Governor,
yes. Chaim Herzog. Then also by the arms and the uniforms that the soldiers wear, and also by allusions in language and in terms that were at that time very relevant, politically relevant. In the lyrics words the Palestinians sing in this ceremony, in the wedding ceremony. They mention Lebanon, they mention Beirut, they mention Peres, Shimon Peres, they mention Kahane. They do many allusions to the time of the story. So, but there is here another interesting sense of clarifying time in terms of the politics of the time.
Okay.
It shows a Palestinian village in Israel under military government. While military government in Israel was revoked, military government on Palestinians was revoked in 1966. Okay. However, Khleifi, I think, has the intention to unify the Israeli experience under occupation in the West Bank and Gaza, and under military law with that in Israel. So he makes here he confounds in a way the military rule over this village with that in the occupied territories, just to make that point, that the experience of occupation is the same. And therefore, and also not just the experience of occupation, but the sense of national identity.
Okay, now you bring up by implication a couple of the themes that have been woven through the other films. And these are both issues, but also questions of style, or what kind of film are we looking at. So although we have a very strong sense, for example, of being on location here, it's a mistake to think of this as some kind of realistic or naturalistic film. That's not to say that the film is not giving us a set of assertions or truths about cultures or conflicts, but that in fact this is more inflected toward a allegorical mode where a number of elements are being combined together. And so if one wanted to say, well, gee, no village of this kind was exactly under this rule at that moment, they would be missing the point.
Right.
In that way.
I want to say, to make another point here. Halefi made he took another angle to why he is combining the location and the politics. He has shot this movie in 5 different villages, 3 around Nazareth and 2 on the West Bank. Oh. What he wanted to do was, because in the Israeli Galilee region,
right,
Palestinian architecture was already almost lost right, when he has done the movie. He went to the occupied territories where this architecture is still intact, was then still intact.
Right.
Or in much better shape. Also scenery. The scenery is more innocent, rural.
Right.
Beautiful in its skyline, you know,
yes,
the hilly skyline, and so on, the breadth of the fields, yes, and indeed, all that. So he wanted that too, and also by doing that, by unifying architecture, scenery, and so on, he also unifies identity, Palestinian identity, Palestinian presence on the land, politically, and so on and so forth. So he had many reasons to do that.
Well, you know, in one sense, we can turn the clock back to the very beginning of this series, to something like They Were 10, which is dealing with a related or parallel set of issues, because this is a stylized version, this first film, a stylized version of Palestine in the 19th century, an attempt to recover a time of considerably more innocence and to construct a mythology. In the case of They Were 10, clearly to construct retrospectively an audiovisual mythology, as it were, of the founding of what will become the state of Israel. Whereas here we have the same kind of endeavor, but recovering something that's being destroyed by an historical process.
Reappropriation, you could say.
Yes.
Reappropriation. Also, he wanted, I think, they see the structure of the whole film is such in terms of montage and the cinematography and all that, is of resistance. Mm. It's not only that we are here, your story of us, we resent your story of us.
Yes.
We have a counter story to tell that we are the authors of.
Yes, yes, and no.
Okay, so...
No, there is a clear, I mean, I guess to put it in the kindest way, there's a clear sense of a rivalry. I mean, of the sense that, wait, no single group can control mythology or history, particularly if they happen to be more than one group occupying the same territories at the same times and contesting the claims to one another in that territory. Now that brings us up to I think it brings us to another stage in looking at the movie, and that is, if we grant that the movie is made by a Palestinian Israeli from a Christian family who is offering a kind of counter history or counter mythology, I think one of the things that's very interesting about the film is that while that counter mythology we might think, oh, well, this is going to be something easily unified. And in one sense, it is unified by what you've talked about the visual style, the recreation of a certain kind of life. It's still true that once we step into that other side, we discover it's an enormously complex and diverse side.
Absolutely.
And that, I think, is one of the most interesting aspects of the film.
Right, and let's say a few words.
Okay, please, Yara.
Okay, we have so many, I mean, the camera, although the story privileges some tales and some characters, the movement of the camera is such which puts together so many varieties
Yes.
in character, in a political opinion, point of view, ideology, temperament, and roles in society. Okay, so of course we have there, and just to mention a few, we have there women and their role in Palestinian community. We have there the point of view of the father who is more traditional and compromising in some way, and so on. We have the militant the young militants who make a plot to attack the military. We have the point of view of the younger generation. Right. We have a point of view of the father, Abu Adel, the Mukhtar, his brother. Yes. He has a different opinion. And so on. So we have the old people. We have the Mukhtar's father, who, and that's a very, very interesting character in the narrative, because he's not there just the fool.
No, no.
He is there to tell the history of oppression since the Turks, the Ottomans, then the British rule, and then he doesn't say, but it is implied what else.
Right.
Okay, so he brings us to the present. He also confronts the military governor and there even and mocks the military governor in some way. Even when the governor asks him, "How are you? How are you doing?" He says in Hebrew, "Well, Baruch Hashem, thank you," in Hebrew. So this is another irony. But the genuine, I mean, role of his is exactly unifying history, establishing a depth, a duration, a long duration of history of these people on this land, and so on. So there are all these different, the daughter of the Mukhtar, the young sister of the groom, who confronts the military. I mean, the soldier there in a very provocative way on many, and so on. So the camera constantly moves on women preparing food, on the episode with the Israeli woman soldier who faints because of the heat.
And who was brought into the culture of the Palestinian women.
Undressed of her uniform, and dressed in a Palestinian dress so that she can join into a milieu that is peaceful and tranquil, and so on and so forth. Or we have again the younger sister in her confrontation with a soldier when she tells him, if you want to dance with us, you would have to take off your uniform. Again, the same suggestion is made.
Now, I want to come back in a minute to the way in which these experiences are expressed in the film, not through just a variety of points of view, but through a variety of cinematic strategies as well. But before we do that, there's something that you can certainly help me with, because you're the professor of classical and Mideastern languages, and not Jerry Carlson at all. I know by watching this film and from a variety of clues in the film that this is a linguistically rich film. That this is a film that plays with language a great deal, its two key languages are Arabic and Hebrew. Could you explain, particularly for our audience members who are familiar with one language or the other, or with neither language, how Clefi is using language in this film, how it gets made into one of the themes of the film?
Arabic, which is an ancient language and has a very long history, like all early languages, has many, many layers in high culture and on the street slang. So you have there, and I think it is the voice of the father who is hallucinating almost his own story and telling it in classical Arabic, which is a level of language which is really beautiful. Okay, then there is poetry that's spoken, and then there is the everyday. Yeah, there is also the official language spoken between the Mukhtar, Abu Adel, and the military governor.
Yes.
They speak a very formal, precise language, but a language as such, formal language.
Right.
Okay, and then there is a language that's used in the lyrics, which are political and even sloganeering.
Right.
They say, for instance, things like, we are Palestinians, we are not afraid, or we have no fear. Falastini uma bihaf, they say. We are Palestinians, and in the presence of the governor, or they say, they allude to Beirut, to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in Lebanon, and they say there that the Israelis ran away from Beirut, harabu Beirut, and there are other allusions. I mean, there are the stories or fables, proverbs. There are the two little stories in the while celebrating, and they sit there around tables with a military governor, and he is enjoying food. There is another point I want to make here. He is enjoying food.
Oh, yes.
Two young people, one is young, the other is older, I think, with a
mustache, or?
No, a beard, and
yes,
a gray beard kind, and I think he is missing his teeth or something. However, the first tells him a story about a table made in Nazareth with its legs up, and the legs talk without the permission of the governor. The other tells a story about a big fish crossing the river, coming out and speaking, again without asking. So these are fables made spontaneously, as it were, okay, to taunt, to provoke. So there is that language. And then there is the language which is oldish and traditional. The old men and he and the other old woman speak among them, again in proverbs. They don't speak reality. They speak of reality through proverbs. So that's fascinating.
And what of the relationship between Arabic and Hebrew?
Great relationship, very close relationship. Two Semitic languages. And there are many, many words that are almost the same. Some words, the syllabuses are inversed, but the sounds are very similar. And many words, also the structure of the language is very similar, and so on. So the close relationship, relationship.
But in the film, how does this relationship between Arabic and Hebrew play itself out?
Yeah, of course it does. You see, when they go to rescue the mare, the beautiful, I mean, this precious Arab mare, they go there, soldiers, who try by shooting in the air to direct the mare out of the minefields, and so on. But they need to communicate with the owner, with the Mukhtar, and they cannot speak with each other. So his nephew the Mukhtar's nephew, Bassam, stands there, and he is supposedly the translator. But he doesn't speak Hebrew. Yet, they speak to each other in different ways. The soldier, I think is a lieutenant. The lieutenant answers in Hebrew. And they understand, so the communication is in two different languages, yet they get it.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is the relationship, nothing, again, wherever, when the soldier has to say anything to the Mukhtar's daughter when she provokes him, he speaks Hebrew. He knows very little Arabic, and he's using it.
Right.
So, yeah, there is a play on that too, of how non-speaking the other's language still avails, these two languages avail a way of communication that works.
Right. Now, this is, we're running very rapidly out of time because this is such a extraordinarily rich film. There's so much left. If you could just say a few words, Yerak, we talked a little bit about this before this, about the structure of this film, and why structure this film in this way? I mean, is this a way of getting more into the film? I mean, this?
I think that, again, this is my interpretation of the film now. I mean, I sense in this density an ambition to show the veracity, the multicultural aspect of this society. It is spoken usually in the Zionist discourse, if one wants to, in a very kind of limited way, domineering, in a domineering way. And here I think Halefi is trying to show that this society is as rich as any other society. So
well, this is where we have to end, but a very fine words to end on. If you'd like more information about City Cinematheque, please drop us a line. Drop it to City Cinematheque, City University Television, 25 West 43rd Street, Suite 1220, New York, New York, 10036. Let me give you that information again. Drop it to City Cinematheque, City University Television, 25 West 43rd Street, Suite 1220, New York, New York, 10036. Yerak, we have to rush out of here, but only because you've given us so much to think and talk about. Always a pleasure to have you back here. Thank you. And I hope that our discussion here has enriched you. Join us again on City Cinematheque.
The preceding presentation was made possible in part by the support from Telrad, Excellence in Telecommunications.
The preceding presentation of City Cinematheque was made possible in part by Mariv, Israel's most interesting newspaper, available every Friday in its international edition.